Hey, hello, I want to talk about SubD modeling in Rhino. The SubD tools are around since 2006, but they have matured a lot and I think there are not enough videos out there. Now, if you come from a very strong NURBS modeling background, then the SubD tools might be quite intimidating. It's a completely different way of modeling, but I believe they are extremely powerful and it allows you a modeling style you would find, for example, in mesh modeling tools like 3D Max, Maya, Blender. Imagine you design a table like something like this. Well, that is probably quite easy with NURBS modeling. But what if it becomes like this? Then you will struggle quite a lot with NURBS. That's why we have the SubD tools. Now, before we jump in, a quick shout out. We have a new member, Mr. Sandra Bibas Potero. I hope it's correct. Sandra, thanks a lot for joining. It's always a pleasure to have new members. And please let me know if you have any questions. Just drop me a line. Sandra has one video up here. He just joined a few days ago. He has here one video. It's about 1 month old. So I had a quick look. I think it's a student project. Correct me if I'm wrong, where he talks about his project very holistically, which I find really great. So he starts with the analysis, the location, indoor comfort, outdoor comfort, the problems he faced, but up to the point where he actually shows a short animation. So well done. Yes, if you have any questions, please always drop me a line. I'm always up for a nice chat. And yeah, thanks again. Now let's jump into Rhino SubD modeling. Alright, we are here in Rhino. Before we modeling anything, so we will model a table. Very simple, but what it does, it will explain a lot about how we actually model with the SubD tools. And the basics are always the most important. So learn the basics, then you understand the more complex stuff automatically. Now I changed a few things before we jump into the modeling itself. Go into your display settings. I'm here in rendered viewport. I changed my background a bit here. Maybe it's a bit too dark. I turned on all the SubD wires, creases and boundaries. We'll talk about what that is. And I also changed the colors of these wires and creases in the render settings. So I went into the actual settings and changed under render objects SubD. I changed that these have a single color, just to distinct them from the actual color of the object. And then I just created a very simple material, just to have something a bit nicer to look at when I model. Yellow might be not the ideal color because then other highlighted objects might be hard to read. I maybe choose something like this, right? Or I don't know, blue. I think this is okay. We will model a table, a very simple table. But before we do that, I will explain a few things. So here on top, when you open Rhino, this might look like this. The SubD tools are here. Here on the top, you have creation tools. You can create things very similar to the NURBS tools, but it's a kind of a mix between NURBS and mesh modeling somehow. You have a tool here. It's called Reflect. We'll talk about this later. Fill, holes, extrude, and offset. And then we have mesh, or like kind of tools which helps you with the topography, with the topology of the mesh kind of layout, or converting objects from NURBS or to NURBS, and so on. Then we have a selection section here where we can select either objects, edge loops, edge rings, face loops, and so on. We will talk about this. This is very important. And then we have a kind of a selection filter. And we have this tool, the selection filter. If this is turned off, if you click on one of these, then it should show up. I think in Rhino 8 it's automatically somewhere on your screen. I just put it here. And this can be disabled. And if you click here on filter selection off, everything's on. And you can turn on and off the SubD objects. It's a bit complicated, but you will get you will understand the more you use it. There's some more, another very interesting, another very important aspect to the SubDs, which is the ability to turn on and off a flat or a smooth display. Yes, SubD display. So the SubD are kind of a smooth version of a more rigid kind of skeleton in the background. Just very simple. If I create here like a box, then the box will look like this. If I turn into flat, it actually looks like this. So it's kind of interpolating these surfaces, and you can turn this on and off with tab. And the shortcut is really necessary because you want to switch between the two quite quickly. So that's one thing to understand. This is like a nice pillow already done. We don't need to do more here. All right, let's just remove this. And then the other concept is about the actual SubD. This is where the subdivision, where the name really comes from, is by subdividing edges, or sorry, surfaces or faces. For that, let's see. If we would start to model a table, we probably would start with the plate of the table. And we could do that by just creating a single SubD surface. And if I change back to the smooth display, then you see it's almost like a circle. It's not really a circle. You can see there's something wrong. It's not really a circle. If I turn on these points, you can see it has control points here, which I can move with my Gumball modifier. You can also move them just with your mouse without using the Gumball. There are different ways to move things around. We will talk about this in more detail later on, or in future videos. But yeah, so that would be now a round table. But of course there's the concept of subdividing the surfaces as you need. So we could use this here. This tool is called Insert SubD Edge Loop. And if we now select an edge here, then we could add this, go into perspective view. It's nicer. I also turn this off again. And we could add another, oops. Now we have divided this. I want to add another one as a cross to cross over. I selected this edge, and it recommends you see that kind of transparent portion. It just basically recommends or suggests to also select this one. I can just press enter, go here to mid, and that already looks a bit more like a table. You can add as many as you want. So you could go again here. By the way, if you right click, you select an edge ring. It's different. We just click on this, and again we can just select. And you can always, here what's great, you can always snap, for example, to the middle of that new cell you created before. Right click to just choose the previous selection, previous tool. Now if we click through, you can see how that affects the smooth display, and we probably would need way more to do that. So now if I would try to create like a thickness, I could use extrude, but the problem with extrude is it actually creates this hollow kind of thing. That's not what we want. We want to have a solid object. So I could select this and SubD offset, object to offset. I choose the side to object, and I could do this. Could be already quite a nice table. And you can still add new subdivisions. For example, I could now take this, it was choosing this whole loop, and you could make this edge much more defined here. But if you work like this, you need to be very careful how you move how you slide your subdivisions across. So if I now go into this, if I go back to my flat viewport mode, you can see there's something going on which is not great. And ideally you want the distribution in your flat viewport being kind of similar to what you see in the smooth display. It's like a control tool to check if my topology is actually makes sense and if it's clean. So there are other ways to get to that point. So I could get rid of this. I could create a box, or let's go with this one. So I create a SubD plane. The SubD plane allows you to create automatically subdivision. So it's already has a subdivision in the middle, but you could, going back, you could define here how many subdivisions it should have. So for example, you could say X should be 10, Y should be 10, and then you have something like this. That's pretty cool. If I turn off and on, you can see that the distribution is quite neat. Only this area where it actually creates the fillet of this table. Now, if we want to have a more harder edge, we can still add our subdivision loops. So I could do this, but always being careful to not create something which is. It's always good to check what you're creating here. So you could be here. Of course, you could do this. You can still move any of these loops by using this tool here. Slide mesh or SubD edges or vertices. And now the problem is it only selected one element. I can use now this one and select this whole loop. So this is the selection to select the edge loop, which basically selects like something like a chain. I could say yes here and then push it here. Now you can already see there's a bit of a difference between the flat display and the smooth display. Pushes further out. So yeah, so that's something to figure out over time. Now a table, especially a square table, has 4 similar sides, or let's say has 4 identical sides. And therefore, there are ways to model with a mirror effect, so you don't need to model 4 sides and run into the problem that they might be different or might be not exactly the same. So you can model with a tool. It's called, here it is, Reflect SubD Objects. Before we start with this, and so I want to start my table slightly different. I want to use the box object. Create a SubD box. And here again I have the option to divide. I want to divide it with, again, I want to use 10 for X, same for Y, and I want to use Z, I want to use 3. So this is my setup. It's quite neat. So that looks already quite nice as a table plate. And now I could add my legs. Okay, if I want to add my legs, I can use the extrude function and extrude this. Now that looks quite weird. Looks very interesting. It's not really what I'm looking for. Here it actually looks good, but well, it could be a pretty interesting table. I want to do this in a different way. So I want to actually select all these here and delete this side, and then I want to select this side. I could have chosen another side, but yeah. Now, because I want to only model one side and not always all the 3 sides, I choose this tool here, Reflect SubD Object. It asks me what object I want to reflect. Oops. And here I can choose X, and I can just say yes. And then I can choose the other one. I can do the same again, and I choose. It automatically suggests Y. It's great. And now I only need to model 1/4 of that table. I could do the same. Could do this, extrude, and it creates my table. So pretty handy. Now the table legs look quite strange. So in order to fix that, I will add more edge loops. So I will add here, So I added one more edge loop in the middle, and then I add another one also in the middle here. And I'll do the same. I will again choose this, and now although it suggests middle, you can see that it's not. It looks slightly different, but I think that's okay. So that I think we can go from here. Now I can, if this is now my table, I could extrude these objects here. And now it already looks a bit better. So it looks slightly more like table legs. Still strange with this thing. But again, we can add. And of course you want to check if this is the size you want, but just trying to explain some principles here. Now you could add here another edge loop. One in the middle. So this is quite good. I want to add a bit even more detail here. Just do this, and I can always check how that looks in my flat display mode. I don't want to snap here, because that would mean I'm already very close to the other. You could do that, of course. It doesn't really destroy your model, but I try to have a little bit of a distance here, and I could add another one. It's just good to control that later on, or like you have the control later on to choose or to remove edge loops. Again, I could do this, go in the middle. The more you add, the harder this kind of edge become, or these like corners become. And I can do the same, of course, on the lower end, so I can add loops here. Now I feel that the edge here, the corner of the table, I want to have also a bit more defined. Again, I can take here this edge loop and add another one and push this out. Again, checking where I place my... And you can work very exact, really, because you could put your grid snap on a millimeter, for example, and then this is super exact. Or you make a drawing and snap to that drawing, like a 2D drawing first. But I just show some tricks here. And I can do the same on the other side. So again, choose this, select the edge loop, and push it here. So now I have quite neat, realistic looking corner or edge. And I can add another one, but now I choose this one. Do the same on the lower end. And that's where you can model hard edges which look realistic. The legs look a bit roundish, so we could do the same here. So we could choose this. So I think you get it. So I basically just added subdivisions where I needed them to be. And of course you can add a bit more, but basically you can see that wherever I needed more definition, I added a subdivision. And you could, because here this is just directly on the edge, I could also then add another one here to make it, to really squeeze it in. But yeah, I don't really need that now. Now I can create other... Let's add a few more subdivisions here, and here. Now, for example, if you now believe this is done, you could remove the symmetry. I just realized there's a bug. Remove symmetry from SubD doesn't really work. It's creating an error. It says unknown command, remove existing symmetry. Weird. We can work around this by just typing _ remove symmetry. Select objects to remove symmetry. Select objects to remove SubD symmetry. I can choose this, and here we are. It's done. So I can imagine that a few people are gonna be annoyed that this doesn't work. It's really annoying, honestly. Let's add some shadow, and of course we could turn off our SubD wires. We have a nice looking table with cool, smooth corners. And now you say, but I could do this simply with SubD modeling. Yes, but now if we move forward, then everything becomes more tricky. So we could add now much more detail to this. I'll go back. I actually go back and I want to keep my symmetry on. I like the shadow though. Let's have the shadow on. This was nice. Now, what if I want to add more detail, more interesting elements to it? So one amazing tool is soft transform, and that works like this. So I could for example, select faces here, select the faces below. Oops. And if you don't do anything, it could, do this. It's quite weird. But yeah, it could create like, I don't know, legs with interesting, paws, legs with much more interesting details. There's something going on here, but yeah. Now you can control the fall off of this smooth transform. So for example, if I choose these vertices, these faces again, and I use the soft transform, it gives you this bubble, and I could move up this bubble to here, to this last edge loop, and suddenly I can do things like this. That was not cool. Now, moving things, there's another way to use the gumball. The gumball is very useful, but it's sometimes you would like to move objects in a different way and not always in X and Y. So if you click here on the gumball with if you right click on it, you can align the gumball to the object, the C-plane, world, or view. If I apply this to the object, then I have the option to move it actually perpendicular to that selection, which is really handy. Oops, that's not what I wanted. And now you can see that move option really captures the whole leg. Of course, that's not what I wanted. I can change this radius again and to only a certain portion here. That looks weird, but it's just the purpose of showing it. And I could, of course, turn off the grid snap. Maybe it's a bit annoying here. I'll turn it back. But you can also type the distance you want to put in to be very specific. So I could move it by 1. So I can do things very clearly in the same way. And there are other tools within the gumball which you can use. For example, here the move tool is not the only one. You could also scale things up. So if I touch this ball here, no, not the ball, but I can scale things like this. You can move it freely in 2 directions, Z and X. You can rotate. It could be quite interesting. Again, it's then all about playing around. But I could, for example, if I choose this edge loop here and choose the fall off again properly, I only want to affect this area without the leg, without the foot, then you can see that the foot stays where it is, and only that portion which is within the fall off rotates. And you can always check if that makes sense, or maybe you didn't like that. Maybe you can pull this back again, turn on my grid. I'll just undo a few of these moves here, and thinking of what else could I do here to make it more interesting. Let's move back. I could also play with the thickness of the legs, or make the plate thinner. That could be something. I mean, what else could we do? We could actually add here a plate in the middle, so it looks more like a support plate. Just show you another concept here. I think it's probably very useful to understand. I can remove, of course, things here. For example, I could remove these faces here. Maybe I don't want to remove all of the... Oh, that was not what I wanted. Let's do it like this. Okay, I want to remove these. It created this hole here now. Okay, I can extrude only edges as well. So I could grab here these edges and extrude them to a certain distance. I choose this point here. And now you can see it has this curve. In flat mode it looks like this, and I could just close this. And by the way, I could have also done it differently. That's why I want to show you this again. Let's just delete these here. Sometimes it's just a bit of a thinking process. Good thing I can always go back. But I could extrude these. So I added this vertical plate. That's not cool. Now, of course, it created this additional face here. I don't want that. I'm going here and delete, and I'm not sure if it's in there, but it shouldn't be. Now it kind of looks like this. In order to fix that, I can first of all add edge loops here. I want to add edge loop like this, kind of to try to match what's over here, and another one. So I try to match what's happening over here, so I can close that easily. Now, how can I do this? There's an option I can use, it's bridge, and with bridge I can select. Let's do this. Oops. And now I want to control what I'm gonna choose. So I go here and select edges only. I want to only select edges. It asks me select the first set of edges to bridge, and then I choose the second one. And it created this segments. Perfect. There's another way to do this is by append SubD, append to SubD. And with this you can choose a SubD object, and then you can snap to points, and it should, yes. Now you have this kind of situation. Looks pretty cool. Or in that case you might want to use close hole automatic. That's not what I wanted. That's annoying. So, but sometimes it works really well. I just use the same again here. And if you are in a smooth mode, then you actually see how that affects the geometry in real time. So I go again here. And we have this. Here it's still open. I use the same method. Then sometimes it's easier to go to the flat mode again. And now this looks pretty cool. And of course I can do this on the other side. Go back to surface selection, adding face loops. Oops, forgot both sides, of course. I can try to bridge more than one thing. So that's maybe even better. So let's do this again. Bridge, where is it? Here. I can choose the first set. Go back here to edge selection, first set and second one. And hopefully the order is not wrong now. It's pretty good. Detects my problem and even closes it here, which is great. Now again, you can add more edge loops if you want. If you want to do this, kind of like that, how it looked like before. You can also delete the edge loops, by the way, without losing. So that's something really cool. You can actually select this entire edge loop and delete. Select, of course you need to select it. And it might actually help you to clean up your model a bit better. It slightly affects, of course, the output. But yeah, you can see what you could do here. I think it's pretty good. I will just stay here and we will look at more tools in the next. We'll look at other examples in the next videos. Alright, I hope you like this, and let me know any comments in the show notes, and happy SubD modeling. Ciao!